Blast off, Bonnet.
Heading for home.
Just heading off this side, port side.
What side?
One of the 1,000 crews who took pride of place in the Jubilee celebrations.
It was amazing. It was a good experience just being on the river rather than on the street. And the views of just all the boats and the crowds was just something you'll never really experience again.
Yeah, it was something really special, especially seeing all the boats, especially at the beginning of the pageant, come under Tower Bridge.
Much quieter here today. The only royals, in fact, were these, and every skipper seemed keen to make waves. Behind every vessel, a trail of memories.
It's definitely something that not many people ever get to do, and it's certainly not going to be seen again in our lifetime.
Very few teenagers will ever get to enjoy the views that these young men did this weekend, never mind to take part in a river pageant with the Queen. A trip right through the centre of London at the scenic start of the long journey home for these young boat builders from Banffshire. Their part in the Diamond Jubilee may well be over, but they've been left with a lasting impression of having taken part in history in the making. Tim Reid reporting, Scotland on the Thames.
Picnics don't come much more special than this. A meal to dine out on for months, maybe even years to come. The lucky 10,000 picked by public ballot in the Queen's back garden with a picnic hamper full of food and free drink, a tent full of beer and champagne, only one glass each though. No wonder people were pinching themselves.
It's a day to remember. I just cannot believe that it's actually happening.
You're never going to see this again, definitely not. Tonight's going to be even better.
When are you ever going to get a chance to do that ever again? It was absolutely amazing. I feel so privileged to be here.
We've been excited for the last 2 weeks since we've known. We've been like children, haven't we? Are we there yet? When is it? Excited.
Of course, the picnic by royal appointment is just the starter. After the food comes the entertainment, the Buckingham Palace concert. Out in front of the palace, the final technical rehearsals have been taking place. In addition to those with tickets, people in the Mall and Green Park will also be able to view the concert on big screens. Lenny Henry is one of the compares.
People already gathered in the Mall watching the big screens, and it was a very, very good atmosphere. Even at midday, people were getting down and enjoying themselves. So I think tonight's going to be very, very special indeed.
This is how the stage should look tonight. Among the artists who will be appearing are Sir Elton John, Sir Paul McCartney, Jessie J, Kylie Minogue and Stevie Wonder. The man who's put it all together is the concert's musical director, Gary Barlow.
But there is a few surprises to come.
Tonight, though, a surprise the royal family certainly will not have wanted. As members of the family joined the picnickers, the palace disclosed that the Duke of Edinburgh had been taken to hospital in London with a bladder infection. The Duke, who was aboard the royal barge yesterday, will remain in hospital for several days. Tonight's concert will go ahead as planned.
A party on the Mall and everyone's invited. No tickets here, but for the lucky ones, a front of house view.
We applied for tickets, but we didn't get them, so we thought we'd be right at the front to join in.
As soon as we were allowed to come back stand by this, we all legged it. Before the rest of the crowd came in, it was just to be able to say, oh, I'm at the front, be able to see it, even though we're not actually in the actual crowd in there, to be able to be here, it's amazing.
After hours of waiting, the stage revealed, and a sense of growing expectation from the thousands on the Mall.
We love you, Queenie! We do!
And between the sound checks, songs from the crowd ahead of this concert by the stars.
It was especially for the Queen, yes, but you know, today is for the Queen and we're here to support her and to just congratulate her, and it's fantastic. The atmosphere is wonderful and we're just having a great time.
We've got very, very wet Union Jack pillows.
Some here had camped out overnight, the earlier rainy weather adding to their adventure.
We're a bit crazy, but the Queen stands for hours and hours, doesn't she? And she has done for 86 years, so if we can't sleep out for a couple of nights to celebrate 60 years, it'll never, ever happen. Not in my lifetime, not in the kids' lifetime.
They're here for the monarch, yes, and the music too.
Fantastic, isn't it wonderful? Yeah, I've only come to see Kylie Minogue, but don't tell my wife because she's just over there.
As the afternoon wore on, the flags started flying. The crowds here decked out in red, white and blue.
There's now close to 20,000 people packed into just this one part of the Mall. There's not much room to move, but if anything, it's adding to the fun.
And though the concert has yet to start, they're already dancing, joining together for this public celebration for the Queen. Lorna Gordon, BBC News, the Mall.
Shan, here at Pontefract Castle, around 1,500 people are expected below me to come and see the beacon being lit. But of course, as you mentioned there, it is just one of so many locations. People will gather at both high points and historic landmarks. At the ruins of a castle with long links to kings and queens, a day to honour a modern monarch. This is just one of the thousands of places where a beacon will be lit tonight to mark a royal milestone. And for many, celebrating 60 years of the Queen is important.
As people become so disillusioned by politics, by Parliament, etc. Oh right, the monarchy has had ups and downs, we've had some very strange rulers, we've got a magnificent ruler now.
And across the Commonwealth, people have been paying tribute. In Tonga, scouts and Girl Guides came together to light one of the first of the beacons. In New Zealand, a small group gathered before dawn in the town of Blenheim. They'd been given royal permission to start these celebrations early. And in Canberra, the Australian Prime Minister lit the beacon at Parliament House. It's a tradition that stretches back centuries.
In the provinces, celebrations were held everywhere.
This beacon was one of many built to mark George V's Silver Jubilee in 1935.
At night it blazes its loyal message while thousands of Scots look on.
Across the UK, they've been preparing for this year's Diamond Jubilee. Flames will be seen from the top of Slieve Donard in Northern Ireland. And in Swansea, air cadets have been tasked with building a beacon at the highest point in the Brecon Beacons.
I hadn't really thought about it until this morning, and then I thought, oh God, what happens if it doesn't light? But no, it's going to be okay.
In some cases, they've been gathering wood for weeks, especially for tonight. In the Malvern Hills, the beacon is expected to be metres tall. While in Edinburgh, the castle will be lit by flames as people mark 6 decades of history. Beacons were once used for communication, but they're now part of a British tradition of celebration that's been obvious this Jubilee weekend, even to those from outside of the UK.
I think that's what makes this country. It's beautiful to look at, but the history is what people are coming here to see.
And in that history of kings and queens, the monarch being honoured tonight is among the longest reigning. Well, in this long weekend of celebrations, yesterday was marked by downpours, and let me assure you the sun has been very welcome today, but people are now waiting for the darkness to see those beacons light up right around the country.
Now back now to the Jubilee, of course. Over the past 60 years, the Queen's frequent visits to Scotland have often been caught on camera. Our social affairs correspondent Riva Alderson has been looking back at the monarch's relationship with Scots as seen through the camera lens.
From a very early age, Scotland held a special place in the Queen's affections. She was a regular and enthusiastic visitor to Glamis Castle in Angus, the home of her mother's family.
Darling Granny, thank you very, very much for having us to stay with you at Glamis. It was one of the happiest weeks I have ever spent. With lots of love from Lilibet.
The royal family are greeted on their arrival at Ballater Station by the Marquis of Aberdeen before continuing...
And it was to Scotland that the Queen turned in the months after her father's death, beginning her tradition of holidays at Balmoral.
The honours of Scotland, which have survived through the centuries, are now to be offered to Her Majesty as a demonstration of the loyalty of her Scottish subjects.
And the nation responded with huge crowds turning out when the Queen came to Scotland immediately after her coronation. Hampden Park was full for a youth rally, and Glasgow's George Square was packed with thousands of well-wishers.
As the Queen comes near the crowd, they surge forward again. Many who faint in the crush are trampled underfoot, despite every effort of police.
In all, 300 people were hurt as Glaswegians surged forward to get a better view of the newly crowned Queen. The coronation had been the first major royal event televised live, and everybody wanted to be here. It's hard to imagine a similar reaction today.
It's given me a day off my work. That's about as much interest as I've got in it at the moment. I'll certainly try and watch some of it on TV.
I think it's a very nice occasion for the people of the country to celebrate a bit.
Well, I think it's quite nice and patriotic and brings the country together. It's nice to have something joint to celebrate and unite people, I think.
For historians, the crowds and the attention shown to the royal family were part of life 60 years ago.
In the 1950s, she was a glamorous new young monarch. Nobody had ever seen her. There was no television for most people. And therefore, if you wanted to see the Queen, you had to get out on the streets and see her. And now the Queen is sort of familiar to us all, and we can see her on television, and she's become a sort of national super granny. And you don't go out on the streets to see a super granny in the same way as you do back then.
Throughout her 6 decades on the throne, the Queen has travelled all over Scotland. She's launched ships, opened bridges, and met countless thousands of Scots. She's been to parts of the country which have never before seen the monarch. In Shetland, she was the first ruler to visit for 700 years. The previous visitor was a Viking.
I got to go to town to see the Queen, and that meant putting on your Sunday best, which was a rare occasion through the week. So it was all very exciting. The place was a mass with people and bunting and flags and waving and cheering. She smiled all the way through it, although she probably was feeling a bit cold. And we just had a brilliant day.
But a humble object like the pillar box bears witness to a sometimes spiky relationship between some Scots and the Queen. If you look here, you'll see the Crown of Scotland. Yet if you were to look at a pillar box of a similar age in England, you'd see the initials of Elizabeth II. But she's not the second Elizabeth in Scotland. And in the early 50s, protesters blew up pillar boxes like this, forcing the change of design. This is the third significant anniversary year for the Queen. Crowds turned out in Stirling for the Silver Jubilee. And they fried red, white and blue chips in the northeast. And 10 years ago there were golden moments to celebrate 50 years on the throne. The Queen has embraced the new Scotland and has opened each session of the Holyrood Parliament. Observers say this shows her abiding interest in what happens in her northern kingdom.
People in Scotland don't appreciate the degree to which she's Queen of Scotland. Which is really very odd, since she is descended from Scottish kings like Robert the Bruce, for example, and she's not descended from horrible English kings like Henry VIII.
Diamond Jubilee celebrations remain muted here, though some businesses are enthusiastic.
We thought it'd be fabulous to be patriotic and to put up the red, white and blue, the flag and things, and make it quite kind of tasteful. We thought, well, we haven't seen many other people do it, so why not?
But whatever happens on the streets, it seems the Queen's enthusiasm for Scotland remains undimmed. Rival Alderson, reporting Scotland.